Hello friends, I'm Jenny, and today I'm going to share with you an amazing story that will truly touch your heart. Glowing Star. Three poor sisters worked day and night in a small restaurant, struggling just to take care of their sick mother. One day, an African billionaire walked in. Everyone thought he would marry one of them, but what he actually did shocked not only the girls, but their entire families. Stay with me till the end, because this is a story of kindness, sacrifice, and destiny that you'll never forget. In the heart of Nairobi, tucked between tall, modern buildings and busy markets, there stood a little roadside restaurant called Mama Grace's Diner. It was old, with wooden chairs that creaked and walls that had seen better days, but it was always full of warm aromas, steaming chapati, roasted maize, and the sharp smell of boiling tea. Running this small place were three sisters, Amina, 22, Zawadi, 20, and Nima, 18. Life had not been kind to them. Their father had passed away when they were still children, leaving their mother to raise them alone. Illness later struck their mother, confining her to bed, so the sisters became both breadwinners and caretakers. From morning until late at night, they worked tirelessly, cleaning tables, carrying heavy trays, washing dishes until their fingers cracked. Their clothes were simple, sometimes patched, but their smiles never left. The community often pitied them, yet admired their strength. Each sister carried a dream. Amina, the eldest, wanted nothing more than stability for her family. She was practical, strong, and often sacrificed her own comfort to ensure her siblings had food. Zawadi, the middle sister, had a notebook filled with poems and essays. She longed to continue her studies and maybe, one day, become a writer. Nima, the youngest, was playful and full of hope. She sang while serving customers and laughed even when life was bitter. She believed, deep inside, that destiny would surprise them one day. But for now, destiny only gave them hardship. Their mother's medicine cost more than they earned. Sometimes, they ate once a day. And customers, though they enjoyed the food, rarely looked beyond the aprons and trays to see the hearts of the girls who served them. Then one afternoon, something unusual happened. A sleek, black Rolls-Royce parked outside the diner. The car alone turned heads, for it was unlike anything the neighborhood had seen. From it stepped a tall man in a crisp white shirt, his shoes polished to a shine, and a golden wristwatch glinting in the sun. The sisters exchanged startled looks. "He must be lost," whispered Nima under her breath. But the man entered calmly, smiled at them, and sat down. "Could I have tea and chapati, please?" he asked. His voice was deep yet gentle. As they served him, he asked about their lives, not out of politeness, but with genuine curiosity. "Do you enjoy working here? What dreams do you hold?" he inquired. The sisters hesitated, unused to such questions from strangers. Yet his sincerity encouraged them. Before leaving, the man placed money on the counter, more than the cost of the meal, far more. Their eyes widened. But what struck them even deeper were his parting words. "You girls have something rare, dignity and honesty. Hold on to it. Life may test you, but kindness will never be wasted." The sisters didn't know who he really was. To them, he was just a wealthy stranger. But in truth, he was Kofi Mensah, one of Africa's youngest billionaires. Fate had just opened the first chapter of their incredible story. The next day, to their surprise, the man returned. But this time, he didn't sit in silence. Instead, he asked Mama Grace if he could join the sisters during their short afternoon break. "My name is Kofi Mensah," he introduced himself with a warm smile. "I was born in Ghana, in a small town. My parents struggled. I sold bread in the streets when I was just a boy. Life was not easy. But through hard work, faith, and the kindness of strangers, I managed to build something bigger." The sisters listened, captivated. It was difficult to imagine this man, dressed in luxury, arriving in a Rolls-Royce, once carrying bread on dusty streets. Day after day, Kofi came back. Not to flaunt his wealth, but to sit and talk. He asked about their dreams, about their mother's health, about their challenges. Slowly, he began to notice things others ignored: Amina's blistered palms from scrubbing dishes, Zawadi's notebook filled with unfinished writings, Nima's laughter that masked hidden pain. One evening, after the diner closed, Kofi offered to walk them home. They were hesitant at first, but he insisted gently. Their path led through narrow alleys until they reached their tiny mud brick house. Inside, their mother lay coughing on a thin mattress. The leaking roof and bare walls spoke volumes of their struggles. Kofi stood silently for a long moment, deeply moved. "You girls deserve more than this," he whispered, almost to himself. But while Kofi's visits became more frequent, rumors began to swirl in the neighborhood. People gossiped loudly. "Surely, the billionaire wants to marry one of them. Maybe he will take the youngest as his bride. Or perhaps he'll buy them a house in exchange for their company." The sisters ignored the whispers, though they burned in their ears. They felt his intentions were genuine, but the world always expected wealth to come with hidden motives. The truth, however, was far beyond what anyone imagined. The news hit like a thunderstorm. One morning, while the sisters were sweeping the floor of Mama Grace's diner, the landlord stormed in with a stack of papers. His voice was cold, his words sharper than a knife. "You're 3 months behind on rent," he barked. "If you don't pay by next week, I'll lock this place and sell it to someone who can afford it." The sisters froze. The diner was their only lifeline. Without it, they would lose both their income and their small dignity. Amina pleaded softly, "Please, sir, give us more time. Business has been slow." But the landlord sneered. "Not my problem. Pay up or get out." When he left, the 3 girls sank onto the chairs, their eyes filled with tears. Nima, usually the most hopeful, buried her face in her hands. Why does life always push us down just when we think we can breathe? That evening, Kofi visited as usual. The moment he saw their faces, he knew something was wrong. He listened patiently as they explained. But instead of immediately offering money, he leaned back and asked, "Tell me, if I help you, what will you do with the chance?" The sisters exchanged looks. Finally, Amina spoke, her voice trembling yet firm. "We don't want to live off your wealth. We only want a chance to stand on our own feet. Give us that, and we will build our future with dignity." Her words stirred something deep within Kofi. Here were 3 girls who could have begged, who could have asked for comfort, but instead they chose dignity. That very night, Kofi called in his managers. Quietly, without fanfare, he paid the arrears and arranged for a renovation team. Within 2 weeks, Mama Grace's diner looked transformed. The walls gleamed with fresh paint, the chairs were sturdy, and a new signboard proudly bore its name in bold letters. Customers flocked in, curious about the makeover. Business doubled, then tripled. The sisters worked harder than ever, but now their efforts brought real reward. For the first time in years, they went home with smiles that weren't forced. But Kofi wasn't finished. He had noticed their mother's frail state. Quietly, he arranged for her transfer to a private hospital. The doctors ran tests, prescribed proper treatment, and within weeks, she began to recover. When the sisters visited and saw her sitting up, smiling weakly for the first time in months, they broke down in tears. It was too much kindness to process. They thanked Kofi, but he only shook his head. "Don't thank me. Thank your own resilience. If you didn't fight this hard, I wouldn't have seen your strength." Yet, the greatest shock was still hidden. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the diner quieted, Kofi asked the sisters to sit. His voice was calm, but his eyes carried weight. "I know what people in town are saying," he began. "They think I want to marry one of you. Some even say I'm here to take advantage." The sisters glanced at each other nervously. Rumors had indeed been everywhere. Kofi continued, but that is not my intention. Marriage is not the gift I came to give. The girls leaned closer, curious. I have met 3 young men, he said slowly, men of humility and integrity. Each of you deserves a partner who values your heart, not your situation. If you allow me, I can help introduce you, not as a rich man giving charity, but as a brother who wants to see you happy. For a moment, silence filled the diner. Then Nima whispered, you don't want to marry us? Kofi chuckled warmly. No, little sister. My joy is not in taking you away, but in helping you build the lives you deserve. It was a twist no one in the town had expected. A billionaire who didn't want to marry, didn't want to own, but simply wanted to lift. And that decision would soon change their lives forever. The weeks that followed felt like chapters of a new story. Kofi, true to his word, introduced the sisters to 3 young men he had come to know through his work in the community. They weren't rich, but they were men of good character. Amina, the eldest, met David, a schoolteacher who worked tirelessly for underprivileged children. Their first meeting was awkward. Amina was shy, unused to attention. But David's gentle humor broke the ice. Soon, she realized his dreams matched hers, a life of simplicity, built on hard work and honesty. I don't have wealth, David admitted, but I can promise you respect. For Amina, that was more valuable than gold. Zawadi, the dreamer, was introduced to Joseph, a young librarian. The first time he saw her notebook filled with poems, his eyes lit up. You're a writer, he said with admiration. Your words deserve to be read by the world. With Kofi's support, Zawadi was able to enroll in college, and Joseph encouraged her every step of the way. They would often sit under a tree, reading books and sharing dreams of the future. Nima, the youngest, found her heart captured by Samuel, a musician known for his kindness. Samuel loved her laughter and often teased her into singing along with his guitar. Their bond was light-hearted yet deep. With you, Nima told him, even hardship feels like a song. Each wedding was simple but beautiful. Amina's was held in the schoolyard, with children she taught throwing flowers. Zawadi's was surrounded by bookshelves, her vows echoing like poetry. Nima's was alive with music, guests dancing long into the night. And at every ceremony, Kofi stood as a father figure, tears glistening in his eyes. He gave each couple not riches, but something more precious, a modest home, a small startup fund, and his blessing. Their mother, now healthier, couldn't contain her tears. People thought he came to take my daughters away, she whispered. But God sent him to give them back their future. The town, once buzzing with gossip, now spoke with awe. Kofi had proven that true greatness was not in taking, but in giving. The years rolled on like pages of a book, and the story of the 3 sisters spread far beyond the dusty streets of their town. What began as gossip had become legend, a tale told in marketplaces, in classrooms, and even in churches. People would say with wonder, "Do you know the story of the 3 waitresses who met a billionaire?" It changed everything. Life for the sisters was no longer a daily battle for survival. Instead, it became a journey of growth, service, and gratitude. Amina, always the responsible elder sister, built her life with David, the schoolteacher. They opened a small community kitchen beside the school, where no one was ever turned away. Every morning, children would line up with empty bowls, and Amina would serve them steaming porridge. She knew too well what hunger felt like, the gnawing emptiness, the shame of not having enough. So she made it her mission to ensure no child in her neighborhood went to bed hungry. Food is more than survival, she would say to David. It is dignity. A full stomach gives a child the courage to dream. The kitchen became famous, not because of fancy meals, but because of the love that flavored every dish. Strangers donated, neighbors volunteered, and together they created something bigger than themselves. Zawadi, the dreamer, found her wings in Joseph, the librarian. With Kofi's support, she completed her education and became a published writer. Her poetry collections carried themes of struggle, hope, and resilience. Her first book, From Waitress to Writer, touched hearts across the country. In the dedication, she wrote, "To Mr. Kofi Mensah, who reminded me that poverty cannot kill dreams." But Zawadi did more than write. She and Joseph built a community library. They filled it with donated books, their own savings, and contributions from well-wishers. Children who once loitered in the streets now sat at desks, reading about worlds beyond their town. One afternoon, a young girl approached Zawadi shyly. "Madam, I read your poem about the stars. Now I want to be an astronaut." Zawadi hugged her tightly. "Then chase the stars, little one. Don't ever let anyone tell you it's impossible." Her words traveled far, inspiring thousands who had once believed they were trapped by circumstance. Nima, the youngest, lived her life like a song. With Samuel by her side, she turned her laughter into music that healed hearts. The two traveled from village to village, performing free concerts that blended traditional rhythms with messages of hope. Their most famous song, When the Sun Rises, became an anthem of resilience. Its chorus echoed in markets, weddings, and even on radio stations. After every night, the sun must rise again. At one concert, an elderly widow wiped her tears as she listened. Afterward, she approached Nima and whispered, "Your song reminded me that I still have reasons to live." Nima held her hands and replied, "That is why we sing, not to be famous, but to give light." The old diner where their story began also transformed. With Kofi's support and the sisters' hard work, Mama Grace's diner became more than a restaurant. Struggling students were given meals for free. Widows found jobs as cooks and servers. Travelers passing through were always welcomed with warm food and warmer smiles. On one wall hung a framed picture of the sisters with Kofi, beneath words painted in bold. "Kindness builds families." The diner became a community hub, a place where people didn't just eat, they shared, laughed, and built bonds. Visitors who heard the story would sit quietly, humbled, realizing they were eating in the very place where destiny had shifted forever. Kofi never distanced himself. Despite his wealth and global recognition, he often visited the families like a proud father. He would sit on a stool, surrounded by children who clung to him as though he were their grandfather. "You see," he would say with a smile, "life gave me wealth, but you gave me something greater, family." The children adored him. They called him Uncle Kofi, and listened eagerly to his stories about selling bread as a boy. He never spoke like a billionaire, he spoke like a friend, a guide, a man who had never forgotten where he came from. Years later, Kofi's name shone across Africa. He was honored as one of the continent's greatest philanthropists. When he was invited to a grand event in Accra, cameras flashed, reporters crowded, and powerful leaders applauded. But when Kofi stepped to the podium, he didn't talk about his empire, his companies, or his billions. Instead, he told the story of 3 waitresses in a dusty diner. "They thought I came to marry them," he said, his voice steady, "but I only came to remind them, and myself, that the richest gift is giving others dignity." The hall fell silent for a moment, then erupted in applause. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Back in their small town, the sisters' families grew, rooted in love and kindness. Their children grew up not envying wealth, but respecting character. Amina's son became a doctor who volunteered in rural clinics. Zawadi's daughter won a scholarship to study literature abroad. Nima's twins became musicians, carrying their parents' songs to new generations. The legacy was clear. Kofi had not just changed 3 sisters' lives, he had changed the future of an entire community. And through it all, the sisters often repeated the same lesson to anyone who would listen. True love is not always about romance. Sometimes, it is the love of a stranger who chooses to lift you without expecting anything in return.